The BRICS are now completely destroying the dollar. The countries all around the world that are just saying, you know what, we're not even going to do like Iraq. They're like, we don't even want dollars in our country, $0. Other countries saying we're not going to use dollars for trade settlement anymore, especially in oil. This is the end of our empire.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 12th through February 19th, 2024 while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce Silver Philharmonics at $3.15 over spot with a minimum order of 50. We also have pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $99 over melt and $145 over melt, respectively. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is the Economic Ninja. Thank you so much for joining us, Economic Ninja.
Thank you so much, Elijah. I really appreciate you reaching out and having this interview with me.
It's been a while since we had you on, and it seems like a lot of the issues that we've talked about before have just gotten worse. One of the things that you just mentioned on your YouTube channel, which I would definitely highly recommend our viewers take a look at, we'll put a link in the description of this video here, is the national debt. And obviously, it seems like under every single president, every president adds more and more and more debt onto the national debt. And right now, it's really seems to be crisis mode. I know a lot of people across the country are concerned about this. What is your perspective on the national debt right now?
Yeah, first off, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Everyone likes to blame the last president for the debt issues, but the fact of the matter is every president kicks that can down the road. Another problem is that people just expect when the government hits a debt ceiling, they're just going to extend it. And so far, they're true. But, they did the exact same thing in other cultures like the Roman Empire, where they started clipping coins because they just didn't simply have the money. And so they wanted to just essentially destroy their currency. But none of the people, and even the politicians at that time, didn't consider that a destruction of their currency. But that's what's happening now. And like every other civilization before us, there is a point where the can just disappears. You can't even kick it anymore. And that's what I'm concerned with, because there's a point, and this is what's really scary, actually. This is a much bigger topic. The BRICS are now completely destroying the dollar. The countries all around the world that are just saying, you know what, we're not even going to do like Iraq. They're like, we don't even want dollars in our country, $0. Other countries saying we're not going to use dollars for trade settlement anymore, especially in oil. This is the end of our empire. And it's not that the dollar is going to go away to nothing, right? It's going to be worth a lot less than it is. Today, it's going to be worth a lot less in the future. But we're at that end. And it doesn't happen overnight. Father Time just doesn't yawn and goes, hey, let's switch it from inflation to deflation, or, from money printing to no money printing. It doesn't happen overnight. And we're seeing that, play out right now. And I think that's what's important for people to understand.
I think it's important to know that, like what you're saying is, it's not like the dollar is going to disappear, but you're saying it's going to lose a significant portion of its value and not play as much of a role on a global stage. As you mentioned, the BRICS have really been moving away from the dollar. There was just the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin saying, the U.S. is doing it themselves in a sense by putting these sanctions on Russia that, they're essentially killing the dollar themselves. Did you want to expand on this, kind of what it'll actually look like for the average person out there?
Yeah. So you gave me so much to unbox right there. So saying that the dollar is not going to go to nothing is very hard for a lot of people in the precious metals community to deal with, because they're begging and fiending for the day that gold goes to $50,000, silver goes to 1,000, and then we're bartering in there. I do not believe that we will ever be in a barter system. Are there times throughout the cycle of an economic, build up and bust where there's more trading than not? Yes, but with fiat currency, it pretty much does away with 98% of the need for barter, right? Another thing is that people believe that there's a day where it's just gone, the dollar's gone, and they need to stop that. Now, when we're talking about Putin, this is a very important thing for people to understand, because right now the BRICS nations are coming out and destroying the SWIFT system. The SWIFT is so antiquated. akin to a 1950s version of text messaging. All right. It's super expensive and it's done like that on purpose. And it's used as an economic weapon, right? It's a heat-seeking missile for central banks and oligarchs around the world. Now, China and Russia developed a platform called SIPs a while ago. And even now, it's getting even bigger than just SIPs, where it's faster, it's cheaper to use. And now they've got the buy off with other countries to start jumping into this system. Russia is an excellent example of the US attempting to attack them financially, and they thwarted their attack with a massive shield, and our arrows just bounced right off those shields. And what happened was when they moved into Ukraine and they said, we said, hey, we're going to start sanctioning all of them, essentially putting Russia into the hurt locker and try and starve them, which most people don't know. The U.S. is really good at it. We did it to Japan before they came in and attacked us. We like to attack banks and make people hurt financially and then also in their bellies and their stomachs, right? That's how we invoke pain financially without having to fire a single bullet. When we did that, the ruble collapsed. And I'm sure all of your subscribers know that all they did is they turned the tables and said, oh, hey, how's this? The world is experiencing high oil. We've seen massive oil prices, gas is up. Let's just do this. If you would like to buy our oil, we'll give it to you at a discount, but you got to buy it in rubles. And immediately the value of the ruble went from collapse into just a straight shot up. And that is an excellent example of supply and demand. And they say he who has the gold makes the rules, but that's not the case anymore. It's he who has the oil and has the guts to stand up to the United States makes the rules. And right now, China and Russia are leading a charge against the United States dollar. And I wish more and more people understood how that works, because it's bad.
When it comes to the dollar and also the US debt, do you want to kind of share with our viewers what this will actually look like for the average person? You've mentioned that there will be riots in the street. This will be a very hard economic time for people. But I also can't help but look at, for example, if we look at the debt to GDP situation, right now it's about 120% of debt to GDP right now. We see other nations, for example, Japan, having over 200% debt to GDP. So it doesn't seem like the debt by itself is necessarily like it's the end of the country or anything like that. So did you want to kind of put things in perspective? What will it actually look like for the average person?
Yeah. So when I say riot in the streets, we've already seen a time in the last 10 years where we have had 11 or 12 cities across the nation on fire because riots have broken out all at the same time. We all know that. We've seen big movements, right? Black Lives Matter. There's been tons, right? Even if you go back to the Occupy Wall Street time, right after the the great financial crisis. We saw not only in New York, we also saw smaller groups rising up. Just recently, I believe it was in San Francisco, we saw a Tesla on fire. Or an autonomous vehicle on fire because enough people gathered around this thing, and there's this social tension building up. People understand that machines are taking over our lifestyle. You don't go into Home Depot anymore and talk to a checker. You go and talk to a machine, right? And there's only now one person where there used to be 6 jobs. There's only one job of somebody policing to make sure that you're in the right line for the robot to check you out, right? The scanning tool. The social pressure is building up. And they see these autonomous drivers, these vehicles, and that people inherently understand that they're losing their jobs. They're not able to make ends meet. We have not seen inflation like this since the late 70s, and that led to a massive real estate crisis, a crash, which is pretty much out of the history books. And it seems like every so often there's new history books that just get put in our kids' schools, and they just do away with certain bits of information, primarily financial. And so when I talk about riots in the streets, there's going to be tension all over. We're already sort of seeing it. We're seeing crime exploding in big cities to the point where CVS, Walgreens are closing stores. We see Home Depot putting everything behind cages. They're talking about their loss. Their shrinkage is what it's called in the retail sector. It's coming up in all of their earnings calls because people instead, it blows me away how some criminals will put a jail sentence on the line to go and steal gas when gas goes up $1 right? They'll siphon it out. I never understood that. It's like, why don't you just go knock off a liquor store? Okay, whatever. But my point being is that people sort of, when things go bad, things get expensive, and they see social media and the media, talking about all these wealthy people and the wealthy are getting wealthier. They start to turn on each other. And that's what's really sad, because most people, like the unions recently, and I know I'm going all over, but it really is this big macro picture we have to talk about. Unions are now attacking their employers, give me more money and less hours. And they don't realize they should actually be going to Washington and say, stop printing all this money. You're sprinkling debt forgiveness over people. The only debt forgiveness going on right now in student loans are the people that have had those student loans for like 25 years. You're actually giving them to the worst. It would be, in my opinion, if I was the president, I would sit there and go, if I've got some money for debt forgiveness, let me look at who's paying extra on their debt. Let me go reward those people, not the ones that have just made the minimum payments and just stretched them so thin over the last 25 years they can't pay off their student loans. But what's happening is that sprinkling, and there's a point where that stops. Whether it stops in Social Security benefits by like a freeze. We don't have to just take away SSI or Social Security to make an impact. We just have to freeze the amount. With inflation rising, it's going to squeeze people. Or if we stop giving debt forgiveness for student loans. If we start thinking about how we're doing things now, if there's just a little tweak, it's going to cause pandemonium. And with this election cycle coming up, it's not just America. We've got like 43 countries around the world that are having an election at the same time. I don't think we've seen, I don't remember the years, but I want to say this is the first time in like 48 years this has happened. Don't quote me on that, but where we've had this many elections worldwide. So we're going to have a massive shift because we're going to have lots of instability and a lot of changes happening. And if Argentina or these other countries where, and it seems like it's the same type of person coming out, the loud people brandishing their excitement for destroying the current system, these are the people that are getting elected. And that's what's going to cause so much more tension and friction on the world. So I don't think this is a time to be going and doing anything crazy with your money, if that makes sense.
And I would like to get into the election here in the US. Obviously, seems to be that it's going to be a very contentious election. Again, a lot of people, it seems like for the last couple election cycles, there has been a big portion of the country who haven't wanted either candidate. So it's a disappointment either way. Your perspective on that, and what do you think the fallout will be, regardless of really, it seems like there might be riots in the streets, as you're saying, kind of regardless of who gets elected in this situation.
I got to be honest with you. I don't think it's who gets elected the riots. I think we've seen with really horrible incidents in our nation with people running around and hurting other people. I don't want to get too in depth for the algos, but we only see that if certain candidates are in, and then when certain other ones are in, you don't see any of that stuff. So it's almost like there's stuff being set up in the background right now. I believe that you are going to see, this is the greatest part. In the last 3 or 4 years, how many people have woken up and said, I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for any of these policies. I didn't vote for all this craziness. And then we're seeing stuff coming out. You can't see stuff coming out unless it gets bad. And that's what's really exciting to me. To be honest with you, I'm more excited and more hopeful of the future because there are friends of mine and family members that said, whoa, I didn't expect this. I don't like what I'm seeing on TV. I don't like, the policies that are coming out of the government right now. I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable. I'm like, exactly. Well, you wouldn't have experienced that unless it got really bad. And just like the Dark Ages gave birth into the Renaissance, we've got to think about every time throughout economic cycles, throughout the history of Earth and civilization, it's got to get super dark. Like they say, it's always darkest before the dawn. It's true. It's all about nature. It's all about human emotions and cycles. And to be honest with you, I think honestly, if the current mentality of this government, I'm looking for a really good choice of words, if you know what I mean, continued on for another 4 years, I think more evil would be exposed, but I don't think you'd see it get as crazy as if this entire government shifted back to what it was. I think then it's going to get really crazy because I think there's a certain type of human being that is a taker and not a giver to society. And they always want and they always need that type of human being. That mentality will always be here. I honestly believe it's like 10 or 20% of the world's population. They're sort of like that drain on society. And I'm sorry if I offend people. If I offend you, you're probably there in that moment. If you're not a doer, a giver, a lover of just how this gift of life, then you got to sort of look at this moment and go, those people are the one that get enraged when they're shifted out of their box and not handed things. It goes back into the entitlements. Sorry, I'm trying to pick my words carefully, but I'm sure you know, Elijah, it's been getting a little nutty in the media, what we're allowed to talk about and we're not.
Definitely, especially on YouTube as well. So I did want to ask you about kind of taking control of our own lives. And you mentioned how things are getting so crazy, but we don't have to have our own lives be crazy. And when it comes to, for example, the US national debt, we can go, we don't want to live that way. We can control our own finances.
Yeah, so I'll do a shameful plug. Oh, we already talked about this. This is the set of our new channel. It's called This Will Make You Rich. And it's just starting out. It's the first time I've ever done any editing. My son's helping me. And what we're doing is we're starting very basic with the fundamentals of wealth and debt, how to build wealth and how to get out of debt. And it's growing very fast. It's actually already trending, praise God. But my point being is that these are all the titles of the videos we do in the back. And I have always been very frugal. And no matter how crazy, when I sold all my homes in '05, I sold like 85% of my portfolio. And it wasn't that big in real estate. I was 14 homes back then. But it was the largest portfolio of anyone I knew because I didn't hang out with, I should have been trying to hang out with bigger, more successful people. And it's hard to break that sort of ceiling, right? Now we have the gift of social media. Anyone can break it. Anyone can try and succeed if they just try hard enough. But we don't have to live a life. I lived differently being frugal and saving up and getting out of debt. And when the crash happened, I was like a kid in the candy store writing checks for, like, I would go into massive companies, one company, a woodworking company, and I spent like $20,000 buying all of their equipment, all of their wood, and I turned around and flipped it, or I'd buy construction equipment. Well, today it's the exact same thing. I do not have to live like the nation because of the way I lived my life prior to this point. And that's what I'm trying to do is educate and encourage. That's what we need more than education. We need encouragement because you can do anything you set your mind to as long as you have not only the information, right, but then the ability and the confidence to be able to take that information and do something with it. And that's what I'm trying to do is wake the entire nation up because if the middle class loses its wealth, we're screwed. We are straight up screwed because if we have only oligarchs and then and think about they love to use the word oligarchs with Russia, oligarch, and we don't ever really think like they were in the moon race. We've actually we've been in positions where now we're needing them to get to the moon. We used to like to use these words, but let's just say they're all oligarchs and all poor people, right? Super rich and super poor. Well, that's where we're headed as a nation. And if we don't do something about it and wake up and get out of debt as the middle class, and then use debt for good things like, leveraging money under the proper entities, which nobody wants to teach that on YouTube, so that you don't get yourself in trouble if you're over leveraged and then you've destroyed your debt rating, your credit rating. We'll get the nation's wealth back. We'll be able to employ people. That's why we need to start small and medium businesses again. We need to go back to starting barbershops and small restaurants and all of these things. That's what made us great. All the immigrants coming over from Ellis Island and going, some of them didn't even have a name because they didn't speak English. And what's your name? Like, they don't even know how to spell English. But what do you do for a living? I'm a cook. Okay, cool. You're James Cook. People don't remember that. And that's what made our nation great. But now it's all monopolies, big corporations, big pharma, big everything. And people have gotten, and honestly, big government, the largest employer right now in the world, and it's swelling like crazy for a purpose. They are printing money to give people money to make them lazy. And I just left the government. And it was the hardest decision I ever made. But I had to, with conviction, and I don't want to get emotional because this was the hardest decision I ever made. Walk away after 23 years. I had 2 years left till I got a retirement. I don't get a retirement, but I truly believe in what I'm saying. Like during a crash or recession, it is the greatest time to start businesses and make money. And so I am going to do that. Whether I get canceled or not, I'm going to try my hardest and I'm going to be an example to people. And I think that's how we get our nation back.
One of the things you mentioned there was, I think, in the theme of like taking our own finances into our own hands. I think that's really important there. And when it comes to like getting out of the system, you mentioned, not working for the government anymore, which I definitely commend you for making that, tough decision there. What other ways should people get out of the system? Because obviously you can play in the system, as you say, in the real estate market, have good debt, but not bad debt, right? So what are some of the lines that people should be walking there and not get too involved in the system itself?
Yeah, so I talk about de-risking your investments all the time, whether it be cryptocurrency, real estate, anything. You have to have you always put in a certain level of risk, but you want to take away a bunch of the factors that could screw you later on, right? So one of those ways is to always have a game plan. If something turns, I've got my money invested here. Let's say it's in real estate. How am I going to exit if something goes bad, like I lost my job or my pay gets cut? Then you at least have options. And when you write those options down, it's like an SOP for your financial life. Most people don't have those. I talk about in one of my courses, have standard operating procedures for your life, for your side hustle. Another thing is we have 7 days in a week. There are a lot of people, as a fireman, I worked 3 days a week. I was gone. I lived at the fire station 3 days a week. And if I worked overtime, I was gone for a fourth. But I had a couple days left. 3 days at minimum to work a side hustle. I started with a garage sale. I started selling electric trains. Electric trains turned into me being over a millionaire by the time I was 25 because I turned that money from electric trains into real estate. And I just kept going. So, de-risking your financial portfolio, being completely diversified. I've lost everything that I put into stocks 3 times because I put them all into one stock at a time, whether it be 20,000 or 300,000. I had to learn that lesson 3 times. I'm an idiot when it comes to that. Cryptocurrency broke me of that. you want to have armor built around you, go into the cryptocurrency market, and you'll see those wild swings. It'll really make you think twice about how much leverage you want. But my point being is that that is one thing, diversification. Another thing is starting that little side business. I mean, it's as simple as buying a shirt from Ross. You're like, those are expensive. I just got it 90% off, and flipping it on the internet. It's so simple to turn $10 into 100. You just got to do it. And so those are the things I've been teaching people, and we've seen amazing success. I just, I don't know how to get it out there more. I'm super passionate about it and really excited about all that.
And if our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to the Economic Ninja YouTube channel and your new YouTube channel. Can you tell us a bit about both of those?
Yeah, so this one, I mean, I have three. I got a lot of time on my hands. I have the Real Estate Ninja, but also this channel, it's just starting out. So I got like 12 or 13 videos. They're edited. We put a little bit more time into them, and it's the basic fundamentals. It's called This Will Make You Rich. And that's not a joke. What I do in these videos, and it's going to go from very basic, how to get out of debt, to Harvard econ stuff. So I used to tell all the big boys, in the media that used to laugh and giggle at my stuff. I said, the only thing separating me from you is editing. So one day I'll do it. And so we just officially launched it, I think, 3 weeks ago.
Fantastic. Well, Economic Ninja, thank you so much for your time today. Any last thoughts before I let you go?
No, man, you're awesome. I know you're really big on precious metals, as so am I. The only thing I would say is when people are diving in because they see the fiat currencies collapsing around the world, they're seeing them because inflation's rising. That means the fiat is collapsing in value, right? People tend to go all in on precious metals. Be very careful with that. Just understand, I've done that. I took my entire retirement in 2014. I don't know if you know this. I sold it and put it into physical silver. All right. My timing, I bought my first ounce at $18. I bought my most expensive ounce at 48. Right. And then as it dropped, because of the fundamentals, I kept buying, but it was never at the moment that I wanted to sell. And that's the same thing for all these cycles. It's like you start putting everything into one thing, and then it's like either it tops and comes down, and it's never at that point where you're like, I don't want to sell. Either I still believe in it, or it's not where I was buying it at one time. Be careful when you go all in, but having physical is so important for two fundamental reasons. First off, it's God's money. And when I say God, I'm telling you, the God that created us and this earth, that put it in the ground. And so there's a serious value with it because it takes so much energy to get it out of the ground. I believe there's something special about that, but it's also a sign. It's like every time there's a new law made about weapons and everybody goes out and buys boom sticks. If everybody knows what I'm talking about, all of a sudden the government goes, well, maybe this isn't the time. And that's the exact same thing. It's a weapon, a financial weapon that you're pulling into your arsenal. So it's important. Just I always say, don't go too big all at once. Diversify. And as one basket of your like your silver takes off, I dive it into something else. One takes, that's how I do. Anyway, sorry for rambling on, but I'm just really big on diversification.
No, that's so good. And definitely if something gets overvalued, it's that means it's a good time to sell. And, having some precious metals always, I think is a good thing, just kind of as insurance, but definitely not all in all the time, I don't think is a good idea.
No, I completely agree with you. And if real estate, I mean, you look at it, gold was $600 sitting in 2007, 2006. It went to 1800 in that cycle. What by 2010, real estate pulled back by 25 to, in my area, 46%. My leverage went up 4x. And then when you add actual leverage on top of that, like mortgages, it's insane the purchasing power that gold to real estate cycle does.
Fantastic. Well, Economic Ninja, thank you so much for your time and God bless.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Elijah.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 12th through February 19th, 2024 while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce Silver Philharmonics at $3.15 over spot with a minimum order of 50. We also have pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $99 over melt and $145 over melt, respectively. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.